seconds.
This year. Thank you, dear.
Can you
We
click
are
the mic?
recording.
Am I
All right.
recording? You hear me? You check the mics.
Testing.
Hey, look at that.
Testing.
You're there.
Okay.
Are you guys done messing around?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's get started then. All right. It is 6 o'clock, and this is the Suamico Village Board meeting for Monday, December 2nd. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Just a reminder, if anyone comes forward to speak, please provide your name and address, speak directly into the microphone. I'm going to be looking for an approval on the agenda with one exception. I would like to make a motion to move 9A, item 9A, which is a discussion on the Historical Society fence request. I would like to move that up, if I could, just under item 6, the presentation by Northeastern Wisconsin Water. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. I have a second from trustee Stevens on that motion. Anyone else with comments, questions? All right. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the modification moving 9A to just below item 6, the presentation by New Water, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. At this time, we are to item number 5, which is public appearances. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to an item not on the agenda? If you wish to speak to an item not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to come forward, provide your name and address, and let us know what is on your mind. Anyone? Floor is yours.
Okay. Thomas Lund, 2091 Maggie Lane. I'm just coming about the stoplight on White Pine and Bell. If the village board had any interest in putting together a resolution urging Brown County to keep it up there, that might help in our deliberations with the county. I'm getting a lot of emails. People want it to stay. It's particularly safer now, when you have to take a left from White Pine onto Velp. So I don't know if you guys are interested in that or not, but if you are, if you could bring that forward with your next meeting, that would be
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'd like to see that maybe referred to Public Health and Safety for their opinion on that.
When's the next health and safety meeting?
That will be December 19th,
So that'd be after the next village board meeting. That'd be the check.
17th then.
Because you would need it, in December.
Get it this month if possible, because we're going to meet on the 21st.
Okay. Let's put it on the agenda for the 19th, and this board can decide how to move forward with it.
On the 16th.
Yes. So we'll,
On the 16th then.
okay. Anyone else with an item not on the agenda? All right, very good. Hearing none, we'll move forward to item number 6 and invite Tom Sigmund and Nathan Coyles forward from Northeastern Wisconsin Water. Welcome, gentlemen.
So I'll tee them up real quick. For those of you who are new, we send all of our wastewater down to New Water. And since I think 2021, or maybe even 2020, they've come every December for a quick presentation on what's going on at New Water, what are some of their larger capital projects that they're working on, and then it's an opportunity for the village board to ask them questions if you have any. So with that, I'll pass it off to you guys. I'll scroll down in the slideshow, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. I'm Tom Sigmund, Executive Director for New Water. I'm going to start out and then turn it over quickly to Nate Qualls. Our vision is protecting our most valuable resource, water. Next, please. We have just 2 items on the agenda for today, presenting our facilities plan and capital projects update, and then also our 2025 draft budget. my last action here today is to just let you know that there will be a change in leadership. Nate Qualls will be the Executive Director for New Water beginning on the 23rd. I will stay through January 7th, and then I am retiring. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nate.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to present again this year for you. Taking a look back, over the past couple of years, we've been talking about this with you as our facility plan. In 2021, we took a look at both wastewater treatment facilities, our Green Bay facility and De Pere facility. The conclusions at that time was a need to invest $310 to $480 million over the next 20 years, and that projected to increase revenues at 5.5% to 7% each year for 10 years to fund those critical project needs, operations, and maintenance. Note that those dollars are in 2021 dollars. Next slide. So there were several projects identified in that facility plan, and just want to highlight a few of those. We have moved into the construction phase on 3 of those projects. Our North Plant clarifier rehabilitation, will provide some additional details on that one in the next few slides, as well as our thickening improvements in De Pere pumping and headworks projects. We have several that are in the pipeline that are under design, and including the largest one at this point, the Green Bay facility pumping and headworks project, needed for capacity and aging infrastructure needs. We're going to continue to monitor funding challenges that are happening, and a lot of uncertainty with regards to contractor availability and consultant availability that can certainly influence those projects and their timelines. Next slide. So just wanted to highlight one of those larger projects and give you a bit of a project update since we've been here last. Our Green Bay facility North Plant clarifier project, that rehabilitation is ongoing. We have 12 clarifiers at that facility in our North Plant, and they've been operational since 1975, continuous 24/7, 365 days a year. We've been experiencing a number of failures and just aging infrastructure challenges with those. And we also have an opportunity to improve their performance as we take a look at the rehabilitation. It's a $41 million capital project, and we have 2 of the clarifiers nearing completion right now out of the 12. And going to shut down a little bit for the winter work and then pick it back up with an aggressive schedule and hope to complete in 2026. Next slide, please. So this is a view of an existing primary clarifier, 120 some feet in diameter, like I mentioned, in operation since the 70s, and just showing its age and in need of rehabilitation. Go to the next slide. So this photo will show a primary clarifier in demolition. So we've gutted that. Thankfully, the concrete tanks are in good enough shape to continue to use and will serve us well over the next coming decades. Next slide. And then this is the view with the new upgraded internals and new launders, concrete launders in place and getting ready for service. That's going to go online, I believe, this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the first one to go online out of the 12. Next slide. So it's exciting to see that project underway. Wanted to highlight a couple of cost savings measures that we've been able to accomplish recently. There were 2 project loans that were closing, and due to the changes in the interest rates, we were able to defer those 1 month, saving our customers about $500,000 over the 20-year life of that loan. And then the second item there, with our thickening project, we're making some improvements that focus on energy, is able to incentivize for us, and saving between that incentive and a DNR match of $50,000 will save our ratepayers $300,000 over 20 years. Next slide. So this slide is just to demonstrate New Water's not alone in this challenge with increasing costs. The columns on this chart are a representation of NACWA index, and that's the cost of clean water services across the country. And the lighter blue line with the dots connecting it, that's the consumer price index over that same time frame. And really what this is showing is that the cost related to wastewater treatment services across the nation are outstripping that of the CPI and inflation. So we're not alone in this challenge, and we're committed to help manage through all these projects and help manage the costs. You can do the next slide. So shifting gears to the 2025 proposed budget, we have a 1.9% increase year to year on budgeted O&M and a 6.3% increase on the debt and annual capital. We are really starting to see those projects and the funding of those projects really be a major driver in our annual budget. Overall, total expenses at 3.9% increase. Next slide. Municipal user fees are up 5.5% as a result. You can see some reductions in the mill user fees. That's as a result of better performance of their pretreatment systems and reduced productions. And you can see the total revenue increase of 3.9%, matching that of our proposed expenses. Go to the next slide. Again, to summarize, 3.9% overall total expenses, O&M 1.9, capital 6.3, and those municipal user fees of 5.5%. So what does that mean for Suamico in particular? If you go to the next slide, you can see what New Water had budgeted for 2024, as well as our proposed budget in 2025, budget-to-budget difference of 2.4% increase, so that $24,000 beyond the 2024 budget. Next slide. So this slide is just showing that range, that 5.5% to 7% increase in municipal user fees that we had projected with our facility plan, and where we have been over the past couple of years. You can see we've been in that 5 to 6% range, and being consistent with that this year at 5.5%.
Sorry,
Sorry?
IT problems.
There we go. And then we're continuing to project that out into the future. Next slide. So we talk a lot about very large, hundreds of millions of dollars of capital, 5.5% user fees, et cetera. What does that mean? We've come up with a metric that we use for a typical household. For new water services, that comes to about $27 per month. That does not include the costs that the Village of Suamico would need to add to that customer's bill for sanitary sewer maintenance and capital that you all have in your system. So that is up about $1.16 over the 2024 budget. Sorry, next slide. So you can see where we're at on our 2025 budget and our capital program. I did want to also highlight our continued work on the infiltration and inflow reduction program. We've been working closely, Andy, as part of our technical advisory committee on that. Inflow and infiltration is the additional water that comes to us during wet weather, either spring snow melt or rain events, and is really pushing the capacity of our facilities. So there is a need to do something. We need to reduce the amount of inflow and infiltration that's coming into our system, and/or we need to increase the capacity of the facilities. And one of our recent findings, we've put together a draft technical memo on this that shows that there is a cost-effective balance. We think it's at about 10% reduction of I&I, where we will, as a community, we will spend less money if we both work on the I&I as well as upgrade the capacity of our facilities. So we're going to continue to work with the Technical Advisory Committee and in order to help manage this issue. So just wanted to give an update on that. That's what we had. Any questions?
What if we manage our INI and Green Bay doesn't?
Well, it's going to take everybody contributing to that effort. We cannot, there's no community that's immune from the need to reduce INI from our perspective.
Can you elaborate on that 10% again? Are you saying that if we were able to find a 10% reduction in INI, that there would be no increase? Can you explain that again? So,
Yeah, so the evaluation looked at if we spent, how much money would it cost to manage flows only by doing INI reductions, right? So the municipalities would go and just completely do that. What would that cost? And that presented a dollar amount. And then the other side of the evaluation is what if we ignored the amount of INI coming in and just upgraded the wastewater treatment facilities? And what we saw is that if we found a balance, right, is there kind of a low point in that total cost curve, and we found that to be at about 10%. That is a pretty broad assumption of 10%, not across the board, but of kind of a most leaky areas. And certainly, to be most cost-effective, we need to attack those most leaky areas.
and if we were able to find that and hit that 10%, what does that do for the community, for money, for the amount of money that's involved with this? Anything?
Well, if we're unable to manage the peak flows that are coming from our communities, we all as a community will need to invest in our wastewater treatment systems and upgrade them.
So-
it will cost us.
So the
more
10%
collective.
needs to happen on top of what you're already doing in order to make this
That's
work?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that now is clear.
Yep, that's correct.
Nate, if you just elaborate, it's not an or. The 10% reduction, and there will need to be likely some storage capacity to be able to, at the treatment facilities as well. But it was, as opposed to one or the other, it's a combination of the two.
Over the last 3 years, you've come before us and you've given us a cost that is going to increase per household each year. Has that cost remained consistent? In other words, has your projections been pretty accurate? Or have you seen an increase in those costs?
So in that projection, we are staying consistent with that 5.5% to 7%. What we're seeing is the ability to execute those projects as quickly as we thought is not happening, right? So we're on the lower end of that curve. We see that we will need to be on the upper end of that range in the coming years as the ability to get more capital continues to improve.
And that overall 5% that we are projecting for municipal fees from all the communities, you can see that Suamico is at 2.4%. So it's just an average. Some, if they've got more flows or loads, they're going to be a little higher.
Are you guys going to be applying any kind of an INI penalty?
We don't have a penalty planned right now. What we likely have is a compliance point, though, and so try to identify sewer basins that exceed a 6.0 peaking factor and require those municipalities to put together a work plan to do rehabilitation and execute on that work
Okay.
plan. That's the plan right now.
I understand. That's all I have.
Anyone else? No other questions? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and congratulations
Thank you.
on your retirement.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
And your promotion.
Yes. Well, can go either way there, right?
Thanks.
All right. All right. As we discussed earlier, we are taking item 9A and we are moving it forward. Item 9A this evening is the Historical Society fence request for Ancestry Acres. Administrator Caker, if you would.
Thank you. Yeah, let me just try to scroll through here. Everything is very slow tonight. Apologize for that.
It's cold.
So, back in September-ish, the Historical Society reached out to me looking for what the cost would be and for the village to potentially install a fence on the northern property line of the Ancestry Acres property. So that would go from Velp to Maggie. Director Smith did some research, found out for a 6-foot vinyl fence about, I think it was 8,000.
Yep.
And then for an 8-foot wooden fence, about 10,000. I took that to the village board during the budget discussion, and the village board, at least at that time, expressed interest only if the Historical Society was willing to pay for the materials and then having DPW potentially installing the fence. I brought that back to the Historical Society. They've talked amongst themselves, and they are interested in having a 8-foot wooden fence installed on that northern property line from Velp to Maggie. Question for the village board would be, are you okay with that fence being installed on village property? And are you willing to have the Public Works Department actually install that fence? So that's the policy discussion for you all tonight. Happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. The Historical Society is here tonight if you have questions for them as well.
Well, I got some concerns. Well, do you have time? But, and ongoing maintenance-wise, is that going to be a lot? I mean, is that a job we take on then for the forever?
It would be my assumption, yeah.
I think with the first fence, though, the Historical Society was going to maintain that after it was installed.
And that's something you could discuss with the Historical Society, that it'd be your expectation that they maintain it, stain it.
Is it paint or stain or
It's just treated wood, so it'd need to be stained at some point.
in a few years?
Yeah.
Why did we choose to go with the wooden fence and spend $2,000 more than a vinyl?
Well, we didn't choose it. The Historical Society is
Okay.
requesting it.
Okay,
So that'd be a question for them if you
All
want.
Well, it's their money, and it probably matches the wooden fence that's already up, rather than putting another vinyl fence that doesn't match. I'm guessing.
that's a good guess.
Well, we can find
Yeah.
out for sure.
Yeah,
You could ask them.
We
Well-
might get around to it.
yeah.
Don't rush things.
Roughly how much you think it's gonna cost for the village to install this fence?
I'd say we could probably put it up in a week. So 3 guys in a week, it's about $3,500.
But that's not additional cost, that's simply labor that we
That's
already
just
have in
straight
place.
time. Yeah, that's not our, what we call our billable rate,
Okay.
loaded rate, but that's just hourly about.
And do we have that kind of spare time for our manpower?
We always fit in fun
Okay.
projects in the spring.
All right. So really, there would be no additional cost
Right.
necessary?
Yep, exactly.
So what we're talking about is install it, a one-time deal.
Mm-hmm. Just like we did for the one that's up here.
Okay.
I have a question for, maybe a couple of questions for zoning administrator Dunks, if possible. Fence, putting up a fence, is there a permit required for putting up a fence?
No,
Are there any requirements with regard to village ordinances when, if I decide I want to put up a fence between me and my neighbor, are there any requirements?
install and maintain without trespassing, best face faces the neighbor. Anything in this location, anything within 35 feet of that right of way can only be a maximum of 4 feet high. Or 3 feet high.
So we have to keep it 4 feet off the road.
35 feet from the
Right of way.
right of way.
From the right of way,
Can only be
sorry.
3 feet high.
Okay, okay.
Then they can jump up to 8.
So that's one question I'd like to ask, maybe from the folks from the Historical Society. If their vision is to go with a 3-foot, then transition to an 8, or go 35 feet and then the 8.
I think on top of that, on the easterly side, there's trees and vegetation between the right of way and where that 8-foot would start. So I really wouldn't apply on the easterly
Okay.
side of that. On the west end, though, it would.
So, sorry, go over those requirements for me one more time. Best side facing?
Facing the adjacent properties,
Mm-hmm.
and install and maintain without trespassing.
Okay, no permits required.
No permits required.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Is this considered a leasehold improvement when we do this?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, do we not lease this? There's a
We have a
long-term,
99-year lease.
99-year lease, so this is a lease, considered a leasehold improvement of which the tenant is paying for it. Is that what I understand?
That would be correct.
Okay. Have we ever in the history of the village installed something on private residents for no cost, or where we used our personnel?
On private property?
Well, I mean, this is our property, but have we,
Yeah, we put a fence on this property maybe 4 years ago to cover this. Is it this?
Over.
Yeah, right
Right
there.
here, yeah. So we did do it right here.
Okay.
So the section of fence that's there
Was that 2020?
same, we did the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
2019, 2020?
Actually, did the village pay for that fence, or did?
I think we actually paid for it.
The village did pay for
The
that
village
fence.
paid for the fence and the labor?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you trace where this is going?
I think you just go along the property lines here. This black
Okay,
is the intent.
3
believe,
feet to
right.
where and then 8?
35 from the right of way.
So
All right,
approximately where would the 8 start?
I can try to draw here.
And keep in mind too, we did plant those pines and arborvitae or cedars this last year, or 2 years ago already in there too.
Are those on the fence line? How far are those off?
We had an offset to them, I think like 8 feet or something.
8 feet,
Yeah, so
okay,
we
so
put
the
the
fence
fence
would go,
between the trees and the
Okay.
property line, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. This tool is not very nice. So,
It goes on the property line.
so this is 45 feet, so go back a little bit and you can't erase it.
Okay, so the 3 would be here,
Correct.
and then the 8 could be beyond.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it'd be on both sides, so Maggie
The
is.
same thing would happen this way. 35 feet
Oh, okay,
from
okay.
that road.
So I have another question. How do the property owners of the adjacent property feel about the 8-foot fence and the 3-foot step in it?
They're all there.
I know, but
I'd like to address that, though. So that's why I asked the initial question. So we're in this situation, and we're addressing this fence because we've had multiple issues in this property, and we asked the Historical Society to figure this out. They came forward, and now they're going to spend $10,000 on a fence because there's been an issue. The village is contributing to resolve that issue by offering the labor. In no place in this village, per Mr. Dunks, does an individual neighbor have the responsibility to get the okay for a fence. Well, you know, no offense to the Lunds, but at some point, the buck's got to stop, right? This is property that was sold to the village, fully knowing that this was going to become village property and be used at some point, and it has been. We are now going we've gone the extra step by putting in cedars. We've gone the extra step in now putting up a fence. You know, at what point, why is the village, could the village be assumed to be any different than any other property owner by wishing to put up a fence? Why are we held to a different standard than any neighbor, anybody else who wants to put up a fence? I'm exhausted by this. I'm exhausted. And now we're coming up with a resolution for a fence. And, you know, maybe some folks aren't going to want an 8-foot fence. Maybe some folks aren't going to want a wooden fence. So this is our property to do what we wish with it. You don't get to choose, you know, what fence goes up and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. That's where I'm at with this.
I agree with your position on it. I can't disagree. We're within the rights of the village. I think the goal is that we resolve this issue, this ongoing dispute. So I guess my only concern would be, do we believe that that's going to actually occur? Or are we just going to be back here in a year arguing about a fence now? So I think that's the bottom line.
Others?
Just a question, I think we have to open it up to public though, for me to ask a question of the parties out there.
See, I'm going to disagree with that. I don't believe we need to open it up to public
I
comment.
can just ask.
No,
Okay.
we can do that. Let's first, if there are no other questions, let's open it up to the Historical Society first, who brought this. Let's just open it up for public comment if you wish, and then Have at her.
See what happens?
Sure.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to open it up for public comment.
All right, so there is a motion by trustee Romas to open this up for public comment. I'll offer the second on that. No, I won't offer the second on that. Someone else can.
I will.
Trustee Eckert has offered the second. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-1.
A very simple question for both parties involved with this long-going issue. Are you both in agreement on the fence? Is there anyone who would like to approach and say, I disagree with the idea of a fence?
I think it's very offensive that you continue to treat us like we're unreasonable. I don't think anybody cares that you put a fence.
I wasn't,
As well as long as it's maintained.
I wasn't treating you as.
You need to come forward,
Yeah.
forward and provide your name and address.
I was just asking a question. I was asking if both parties
Let
have
her
come to
provide her
the.
name and address so we can get this covered.
All right.
Okay. My name is Linda Jones. I live at 2107 Maggie Lane. My property is on the other side that faces the Historical Society, where there will be no fence, and I'm fine with that. I don't think anybody has a problem with them putting up a fence.
Okay, that's what I was asking. That's all, I wanted to make sure that both groups were
All the
aware.
commentary about, I think if anybody knew that we should have called the police and not come here, we wouldn't have come here. So we're not looking to make trouble. We just want to live our lives, and we don't want people trespassing on our land. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I don't think so either, and the fence is a good
Last time you were here, you
solution.
almost called the police, so I think we would do that moving forward. We wouldn't come here.
Well, then the fence is a good solution, right?
Okay.
Fence is a good solution.
Next question I had,
To you?
next question I had was, there is a choice between a wooden fence and a vinyl fence. Do you care, from the historic committee side, do you care which fence goes up? I can understand why wooden would make sense for the historic side of things.
Ruth and Tom Lund, 2091 Maggie Lane. So, given the history of the fence that they put between the property on 12813 Belb Avenue, there are boards falling off of that. It's wooden. It's supposed to be like an aesthetic, and literally it's kind of decaying, and I'm not sure if it's the village, if it's the Historic Society, who was supposed to be taking care of that, and it sounds like there's some confusion on that. I have no problem with a fence. I think it does create a solution to them being very clear where they can go. The one thought I would have, the vinyl would be more appealing because it would be less maintenance overall. And if you're gonna put up wood, that's fine, just as long as you are under the understanding of they're maintaining it, you're maintaining it, that it will be maintained. And our old property, they put up wooden fences, and within 5 years, they were falling over into our property. So that would be my only concern with a wooden fence, is that it's maintained. I
Is there-
mean, you are the village, so I would hope that there would be some understanding before this goes through, that you, I mean, I have no objection, and I am
Okay.
going to second what my sister said as well. We're not trying to be unreasonable. We tried to work with the Historic Society, and in the past, I've tried working with them. We tried working with the person who came up here and said that they were going to be a mediator with us. And then I got a letter stating that he was representing the Historic Society, and everything stopped after that. I'm thrilled to see that they're talking about a fence here. So
Where's the fence located that's in decay?
it's between the, it's a split rail between the schoolhouse and the in Belt. There's-
This one?
That's the schoolhouse.
No.
No, in between the.
There was a split
The
rail
schoolhouse.
fence.
Is it just like one of those log style?
I think this right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's over there.
and some
Oh,
of the
over
split,
here.
yeah,
Right.
and some of the split rails are off.
Doesn't that look like it's on your property?
I believe it is, from what I understand, is the village put it up as a buffer. I don't know if
Okay,
people
so can we take it out?
Yes.
Okay.
So that fence needs to be removed.
Yeah, we can
as
take it.
part of
I
the-
thought it was yours.
Okay.
No.
Well, that sounds good.
I guess my only question on the fence is it gonna be a little bit off the ground so we can cut around it without damaging the fence with weed eater, you know?
Well,
I don't-
wouldn't that be there?
Or is that gonna be your responsibility?
not-
So that-
We were gonna have an offset to it a little bit.
Is it gonna be offset? Okay.
Yeah, we will be able to maintain it on our property,
Oh,
or
okay.
whoever is responsible for
Okay.
maintenance
So
will
it's
be able to do it on our
offset, that's
property.
fine. So I have no problem with the fence at all. We didn't even know that
Terrific.
they were gonna request a fence, it just came up in
Okay.
your board meeting, nobody talked to us about it, so we just wanted to find out what they were gonna do.
Okay,
So that would be it.
sounds like we've got some agreement.
Yes, it
That's
does.
good news.
Motion to close public comment?
I want to leave it open to anybody else who wishes to speak. There are individuals from the Historical Society in case they wish to speak. Anyone else over here who would like to speak?
Tim,
No
the
one?
only question I would want to make sure is, do you want that 3-foot fence going from the right-of-way to the 35-foot buffer, or do you want no 3-foot fence?
Tim Rasmussen, 2740 Tulip Court, President of the Historical Society. We've been here a lot. And our attorney, just the first thing he said to us is, put up a fence. It's over here. And we're willing to pay for that fence to your regulations, to your requirements. But we would sure appreciate if you would actually install it, so.
Do you care if it's vinyl or wood?
I like wood. Wood is
Okay,
more
you have a-
aesthetic.
okay,
It's
that's
more
fine.
historical.
That's what I was after. That's what I assumed.
Is there any issue with the Historical Society assuming the maintenance of the fence upon installation?
We don't live forever.
Well, just for the next 99 years,
Okay,
the term of the lease.
96, I think.
It's a,
Is it like 89 or something?
We expect you to be around that long to take care of the fence.
we'll try.
Okay, good.
well, hold on, it's a leasehold improvement, right? And what's in the lease relative to who maintains leasehold improvements? So I don't know that
I'm
information.
not sure that there is a clause on.
Well, there should be,
I don't believe there is.
there should be.
We should check.
So there's no confusion later as to who is responsible for maintaining the fence. And if we want the aesthetic value of a wooden fence, just know that there's cost associated with maintaining it to maintain the standards that the village has, which will be debatable. But I'm not in favor of us putting our labor into a fence, and now all of a sudden, we're having to maintain that fence at the same time. So I guess I would ask you to think through this, is when you take this on, that it's a leasehold improvement of which you'd be obligated to take care of the maintenance.
We can make that part of the motion.
I mean, the vinyl wouldn't be maintenance,
Correct.
but it wouldn't look as historic, I get that.
But-
Ultimately, I
Have you
think all of us agree on one thing, we want all this crap to be over with.
Have you seen the vinyl fence along our backyard? Tell me there's no maintenance that's required. Half of it's down, and there's
Okay.
nothing we can do with it unless we replace the whole thing because of the way it was originally installed.
Okay.
So it,
Good to know.
vinyl or wood does not make a difference on maintenance. You still
Okay.
have to maintain vinyl. And sometimes it's harder. Wood, you can put nail a new board up and you're done. When the vinyl starts falling apart like that is back there because the posts are coming out of the ground, that's a nightmare back there.
Would it be something that DPW could maintain it at the cost of the Historical Society? So if any time and material that we have into it, as far as maintaining it over the next however many years, we bill the Historical Society for our time.
Could do that.
And I would echo the wood versus vinyl. That is still public property, it's village-owned property, so we have grass mowers that are sometimes high school students, and plastic and lawnmowers and weed trimmers don't always go well together.
Thank you. It's important.
So,
Hold on. Alex?
Yeah.
Are you the one scrolling? Can you
Yeah,
stop for
so
once?
there is a clause about leasehold improvements, but it does not talk about who is to maintain these leasehold improvements. But you can make it in your motion that we draft an amendment to the lease agreement where it stipulates as much. And we'd bring that
And
to
if the
next-
Historical Society wants to contract with the village for those, for whatever repairs, that's entirely between you and the village, you and Public
Okay.
Works. But if we mandate it, then you're stuck with us.
Yeah,
And, you know,
Andy's expensive.
very.
I mean, at the end of the day, the village has the control over the lease, and you have an ability to terminate the lease. So if at any point in time, you feel like they're not holding up their end of the deal, you can always revoke that lease. Obviously, that'd be dramatic, but you do have that in your pocket.
yep. So I'm hearing two items that needed to be, two amendments to the motion. If the motion is to move forward with the 8-foot fence along the northern property line, there are two elements that need to be added, contingent and including the removal of the split rail fence that's currently in place, and secondarily, the addition of a clause to the current lease agreement stating the responsibility for leasehold improvements belongs to the Historical Society. Did I capture that correctly?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Sure,
So
no
sorry.
problem, no problem. So two contingencies. Contingency number one is the removal of the split rail fence. The second contingency is the addition to our lease agreement with the Historical Society called a leasehold improvement clause, in which the Historical Society is responsible for any improvements to that leased property that they make, hereby meaning the fence.
The maintenance, the
Yes.
ongoing maintenance.
And should the Historical Society say, hey, Public Works Department, would you be willing to help us repair this fence? They can take that up with the village. If they decide to do it themselves, they have that opportunity as well.
Okay,
But the key is that they have to provide maintenance to the fence. If the fence isn't being maintained, then the neighbors have just like they would with any other village property, they have the right to come in here and say, hey, your fence is a mess, fix it.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions?
I just have one last question. Why 8 feet? I mean, is it, because really what we're doing is we're creating a boundary or separation between two properties.
We're trying to match the fence you've
Ah.
already put up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Anyone else?
Would you entertain a motion?
I sure would.
I'd like to move that we close public comment.
Thank you. So there's a motion from trustee Romas to close public comment. Assuming there's no one else who wishes to speak, I'll second that. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So now we're looking for a motion to either authorize or not authorize the village staff to install an 8-foot wooden fence along the northern property line parcel SU 1069-13 to include the removal of the split rail fence that's currently in place and also the addition of a clause to the lease agreement stating that the leasehold improvements made by the Historical Society are their responsibility to maintenance going forward.
I so move.
You second?
I'll second.
Does that also include that Historical Society is providing the materials?
Well, you're authorizing us only to install the fence. So
Okay,
presumption there is that they would pay for the material.
okay.
Just one quick question. Are we, in a sense, we're actually saying we're going to be modifying the lease?
We're
Adding a
gonna,
clause to the-
we're gonna do an amendment likely.
Is
An
that
amendment to
something
the
we-
lease agreement.
Is that something we put in a motion?
You.
Or is that to be separate?
We understand it. I'm
Okay.
gonna come back to the next
Alright.
meeting with an amendment to the lease agreement that's gonna speak to the
Okay.
leasehold improvements that will clarify what we've talked about.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, so I've made a motion on the floor to approve the authorization for village staff to install the 8-foot fence. That motion has been seconded by trustee McKeefery. Any other further discussion or questions on this item before we vote?
Just a quick question. I believe there's some wood stacked against the rail fence. I'm assuming that's your wood, correct?
2 feet off from the rail. So it's not.
Okay.
against the rail.
Okay,
Split rail is 2 feet off.
okay, sounds good. So we won't need to disturb it, I don't think.
As somebody who stacks a lot of wood and hates it when the piles fall down, I appreciate you asking him that.
Sure.
My
Wanted to make sure.
goodness, that was very considerate.
When are you gonna do this?
All right,
The fence in the spring, yeah.
Spring.
We can remove the old one soon.
any other further questions or woody?
When is this
repartee?
happening?
Spring.
Okay.
After the frost.
All right. Everyone understand the motion? What's in front of us? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully, this goes a long way to make everybody a little happier. Terrific. We are now off to item number, let's go back. Item number 7, the consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of previous minutes of the village board dated November 18th, 2024. Item B, October 2024 Animal Control Report. Item C, October 2024 Fire Report. And item D, 2025 Calendar of Meeting Memos. Is there a motion or questions on the consent agenda?
I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion from trustee Romas to approve the evening's consent agenda. Is there a second? I have a second from trustee Neto. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 8 this evening, planning and zoning items. Item 8A this evening is a final plat of Lost Trail subdivision. Zoning Administrator Dunks.
Thank you. We're looking at just under a 20-acre parcel here. It is zoned rural residential, currently in ag use and some vacant land, pretty much surrounded by rural residential with single-family homes and some vacant land. The preliminary plat for this was approved in July of this year with 4 conditions. Final approval of stormwater management plan, approval of a developer's agreement for the construction of the road and any stormwater facilities, payment of the $1,200 administrative fees, and meeting the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies. The developer's agreement is currently being prepared. A stormwater plan was submitted and reviewed. Approval, I'm not sure if we're still waiting on a few revisions or if we've gotten all that yet. This is being planned as an urban cross-section, so it will be curb and guttered. The plot is creating 6 buildable lots and 1 outlot for the stormwater purposes. All lots are greater than 1.5 acres. Wetlands and ESAs do reduce some of these to close to the 10,000 square foot minimum, but they are above that. All lots do appear to meet zoning requirements. The wetlands on the northern portion of this parcel do limit the ability to access lands to the north. Thus, any extension to that cul-de-sac to the north for the future development was not considered. It's not like we'd ever be able to extend up into or develop anything in wetlands anyway. Area is currently not part of the sewer service area. Water is also not available. Parkland dedication fees on this one would be due a building permit. Your planning and zoning did recommend approval with the same 4 conditions. Thank you.
Would you like to entertain a motion?
Sure, unless there's questions. Are there any questions for zoning administrator Dunks? Otherwise, trustee Romas is itching to offer a motion.
That I am. I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plat of Lost Trail subdivision on SU-177-4 as prepared by Mach 4 Surveying with the following conditions. Final approval of the stormwater management plan, approval of developer's agreement for the construction of the road and any stormwater facilities, payment of the $1,200 administrator fees, meet the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies.
Good for you. So the motion to approve has been offered by trustee Romas. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from trustee Andrews. Any other further questions or discussion on this?
I just, real quick, do we have representation for the village when this developer's agreement's being reviewed?
Administrator Caker takes care of that. I don't know what his full process is for review.
So I've gotten to a point where these are pretty boilerplate. And
Yep.
so I'll draft it, send it to the attorney who will review it and provide any feedback, but at this point, they're all pretty much the same. We just swap out the construction costs.
And if they edit something beyond the boilerplate, we have representation to review these.
Well, I draft it.
You draft it.
I draft it.
Okay. And then I'm assuming the developer has their own counsel.
Maybe.
Okay.
They review it, and they either agree to it or they don't. And then we have our attorney look at it, the final product or final draft.
But that was my question. Okay, perfect.
And
Thank you.
so what'll happen is, at the next meeting that we have the draft available, we'll bring that to the village board. You guys will get to approve the final development agreement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Otherwise, we have a motion on the floor to approve this item from trustee Romas, seconded by trustee Andrews. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 8B this evening. Item 8B is the final plat of Sunny Meadows subdivision. This is also zoning administrator Dunks, if you would.
Yes, this is 39-plus acre parcel, again, zone rural residential. It does have some ag farmland preservation, both to the north and south of it, and rural residential to the east and west with single-family homes and vacant land. The preliminary plat was approved in May of '23, again with 4 conditions. One was the documentation of Wisconsin DNR approval of the wetland crossing for the road dedication. That's probably what held this up more than anything. They did receive that, and then approval and signing of a developer's agreement, which again is being processed, and completion and approval of a stormwater management plan, also been submitted and needs a few tweaks. And then the payment, original approval was the payment of parkland dedication fees. That is now pushed to at building permit, not at signing a plat, so it would just be the administrative fees of $3,000. We are looking at 15 buildable lots with the 1 outlot. Lots 6, 7, 11, and 12 do show a building setback of 65 feet. Code does allow for the lot width to be measured at building setback line on radiuses. That's why they created the extra setback, was to reach that 150-foot lot width. All lots do appear to meet zoning code. Again, the outlot was provided for stormwater purposes. Planning and zoning did recommend approval with the 4 conditions. Thank you.
All right, questions or comments, questions for zoning administrator Dunks on this item?
Well, I'm not wild about the 1.15 acres, but we've done it so many times that at this point, can't really pick and choose, so.
Would you entertain a motion?
By all means.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the final plat of Sunny Meadows on parcels SU-173 as prepared by Mockworth Surveying with the following conditions. 1, approval and signing of a developer's agreement. 2, completion and approval of a stormwater management plan. 3, payment of administrative fees of $3,000. Meet the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies.
Thank you. Trustee Romas has offered the approval of the final plat for Sunny Meadows, SU 173, with the 4 conditions as stated. Is there a second to trustee Romas's?
Second.
I have a second from trustee Andrews. Thank you. So we have the motion from trustee Romas, the second to approve from trustee Andrews. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Very good. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right. At warp speed, we are now at 8C, 2-lot CSM for Crevilion on parcel SU 338-2. And yet, we go back to zoning administrator Dunks again. Could we be so lucky?
You could be a lot luckier.
That's for sure.
This parcel is just over 8 acres in size. It was approved for the planned development back in September to address the lack of road frontage on the lot being created. The western portion of that proposed lot will dissect the pond. A maintenance agreement would be required to be included as part of the CSM process. Both lots will be well above the 2-acre minimum requirement. Planning and zoning recommended approval with the conditions for the pond maintenance and meeting all other regulations. Thank you.
Questions for zoning administrator Dunks on this item? Anyone? None? Would you like to make it a threefer?
He's a go for a hat trick, everyone else minds. I'd like to make a motion to approve a 2-lot certified survey map as prepared by Mach 4 on parcel SU-338-2 with the following conditions. Pond maintenance agreement to be included with the CSM, excuse me, and meet the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies.
Very good. So the motion has been introduced on the floor by trustee Romas to approve with the conditions 1 and 2. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second from trustee Andrews as well. Any further questions or discussion on this item? Very good. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Very good. All right, we are now off to
Can we do 9A again?
9B.
9B.
we could do 9A again. It wouldn't be nearly as much fun. Let's do 9B. 9B, ordinance 2024-13, amending chapter 11.23, appeal of dangerous, potentially dangerous dog determination. Administrator Kaker.
Thank you. So this is the second reading of ordinance 2024-13, which would essentially move any appeal of a dangerous dog designation by the animal control officer to be handled by the Public Health and Safety Committee instead of the village board. And it is up for action tonight.
All right, so this is a motion, requires a motion either up or down on this evening. Approve or
Correct.
not approve. Very good. Are there any questions on this item? We've been through it before. Questions or comments?
We talked about it at the last meeting, so I'm good with it.
Anyone else? Nope. Anyone care to offer a motion? I'll offer a motion to approve, move to approve ordinance 2024-13 as written with the changes.
Second.
I've got a second from trustee Neto on this. Any further questions or discussion? Let's do a roll call vote.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Nay.
Trustee Neto.
Aye.
Trustee Romas.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefrey.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Very good. Okay. Item 9C this evening, Resolution 24016, State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program awarded. Oh, Administrator Kaker.
So as exciting as this project is, I'm going to kick it over to our finance/IT director, Katie.
Thank you. So Resolution 24016 is to accept the grant award from Wisconsin Emergency Management in the amount of $25,661.38. This is something that our grant writer that we share with the school district and Brent Ward worked on for cybersecurity to help reduce the village's system vulnerability.
What does it pay for? And does it, after it runs out, are we going to be stuck continuing?
So that'll be something that we'll review, I would say, the benefits out of it and how it's been working, and if it's something we want to bring to the board to include in the next budget once the grant is through, or if there's other grant opportunities to continue it.
So you wouldn't be required to continue it. You'll have to make a decision at the end of the term of the grant.
Okay.
Continue to invest in it.
What does it do?
Helps with security. So it's kind of, there's 3 different parts to it. One is MFA, so multi-factor. You know, sometimes you log into the bank and it sends you either an email or a text message to say it's, make sure it's you. So it would be having that. There's also managed detection response services. So more stuff in the background for any, trying to catch any suspicious activity. So enhancing what we already have. And then there's, part is just teaching staff about phishing attacks.
So I think it might be helpful, at least for the public record or the one or two people who are listening to this somewhere, the project summary, just reading the project summary. So the project summary states SMART, secure, monitor, authenticate, respond, and teach. Is there any value in this, sharing this with you? I guess for the public record it is. So that's what SMART stands for. Suamico is a comprehensive cybersecurity plan based on recommendations from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to the Village of Suamico after an in-depth systems analysis. The goal is to implement and monitor multi-factor authentication and manage detection response services for the Village of Suamico to reduce system vulnerabilities with increased security measures designed to protect systems, access, and the sensitive information contained therein. SMART, again, secure, monitor, authenticate, respond, teach. Suamico deploys MFA and MDR services to 52 users with the intent to protect against phishing attacks and ransomware over a period of 3 years from the award agreement date. The total cost of SMART Suamico is $25,659.66. It involves 3 contractual agreements to be entered by the village, including contracting with a local consultant to ensure maximization of contracted services. There is also an educational component to educate staff on phishing attempts. And I'm assuming some of those of us on the board, particularly employed in the private sector, are familiar with these trainings that you get, right? We actually get them as village officials on our email, right? So I think that that's a piece of it. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it would be expanding on that.
Okay. So that gives a little bit, are there any other questions on this?
So bottom line, I mean, it's probably a good way to go, but bottom line is if we feel we don't need this in 3 years, we're not obligated.
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Who will do this, will we have a public bidding for these services? How does that work? Because what I'm saying is, it's saying you have to contract with somebody. So this group is not doing the service, they're just providing the funds.
Correct. That's something that I'll work with Brent Ward on.
Okay.
It'll probably be a request for proposals.
Yeah.
Or seeking quotes. It probably won't be a formal bidding process.
Right.
But we'll be receiving quotes from companies that can do it. And I know Brent's already talked about a couple firms that he knows.
In order to, I think as part of the application, there were quotes provided at that time so that we knew how much was needed per user, per each of the different areas.
Okay. There are many, many, many companies that do this, so.
Sure are.
Yeah. So we want to make sure we're very selective in credentializing the services that we're going to use.
Yep.
I just have one quick question. Did we see a problem? And we said, hey, we have this problem and we need to do these extra things. Let's go try to find funding for it. Or did we see a grant that had money available? We got the grant and then said, hey, we can apply this to doing these things.
Yeah.
So is this problem generated or grant chasing?
No, this is before Katie's time, so I'll speak to it. Brent's been talking about MFA for
Okay.
2-3 years.
So identified a problem first.
So we had a problem. We've been trying to figure out the best way to implement it. And here's a pot of money that could save our taxpayers some money.
Yep, and that's a
Taking
huge,
advantage of it.
that's the important thing to me. We saw the problem, we sought the money, and they did a good job of finding the money.
Correct. And there's plenty of examples out there of even local municipalities having these ransomware attacks.
Oh, yeah.
There was a recent one just south of
Sheboygan.
us. And so this is something that's at the top of our mind and trying to figure out solutions to mitigate our risk, and this is gonna help.
Thank you.
This is, rather than maybe identifying as a problem, this is a risk mitigation strategy. And this is probably one of the areas that strategically we need to be very conscious of what's happening in the world. And these municipalities are targets. And the cost associated with undoing a situation like this far, far exceeds any type of fees that we're looking at here. So I'm very appreciative of whoever's out in front of this. And I'm very anxious to learn what we get from this and how do we mitigate risk in the future.
I'll echo trustee
Stevens.
Stevens, thank you very much, his comments. So we're going to be looking at this, I'm anticipating this is just going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, we can review it in 3 years, as everyone is, but I'm assuming that it's going to continue. And you said we're going to be getting some quotes on looking at the different options available to us. And I see that we're specific in the number of users. That could potentially be problematic. Leaving it open when we're reviewing these vendors to consider getting blocks of licenses, so we can support fluctuation of the staff. And the 3-year term also would be highly beneficial to get reduction of costs as well.
Yep.
All right. So, seeing no more questions, we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 24016, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of $25,661.38 in grant funding from the Wisconsin Emergency Management State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program. Is there anyone who wishes to offer a motion?
I'll second that.
You can first it. So trustee Stevens has offered that motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And we have a second from trustee McKeefrey. Very good. All right, this is the acceptance of monies, so I would like a roll call on this.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
Trustee Neto.
Aye.
Trustee Romas.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefrey.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Terrific.
Nice.
All right, item 9D this evening is ordinance 2024-10, creating Chapter 14 Cemetery. Clerk Bartoletti.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the attorney for the Village of Suamico encouraged us to create an ordinance pertaining to the cemetery, its use and rules established. We present this ordinance with the guidance of the attorney and the approval of the cemetery committee. On page 6, there is a section in red that was added after the approval of the cemetery committee, as our current cemetery director is proposing a cremation garden and wanted to include that language in the ordinance. The cemetery committee will be presented this information tomorrow at their meeting at 2 p.m. Any additional changes would then be presented to you at the December 16th village board meeting, which is also the second reading of this proposed ordinance.
Are there any questions for Clerk Bartoletti on this item?
I got a few questions, but, well, to start with, I'm wondering about a cremation garden. Is that common?
It is very common nowadays.
Oh, okay.
The majority of people now are getting cremated.
Okay.
So they're looking for
But then
that
they're
opportunity.
by themselves as opposed to by a family or by a spouse? Or,
In the square grid, you can actually, he's going to do it so that you could put 2 cremations into the one spot.
oh,
That's what he's talking about doing. Now, I don't know if that's going to change based on space or, that's what he's talking about doing, so that they could be, 2 together at least. But obviously, you'd still have the other option of purchasing a plot where you could put up to 4 cremations on one plot.
okay,
So you'd still have options within the cemetery. This is just one other option.
okay.
And it's an all-inclusive option. I just wanted to point that out, where you purchase it, and then it includes the opening of the grave and the closing.
Okay.
So,
Now, if they come up with more stuff, can they just add something to the second reading that we're not aware of?
That would be then your decision to approve that, any of
Okay.
those changes, any of, thing that they put in. Again, it would come back to you on the 16th for your consideration.
I found some spots.
Okay?
The bottom of page 2, the cemetery director of the Suamico Cemetery shall be appointed by
Okay,
instead of appointed to.
right?
And then there was a paragraph. Oh, wait, no, Grace.
Trustee Eckert, where was that item that you just highlighted? Oh, never mind, I see it, thank you.
And on page 7, on number 2, only one monument or marker instead of maker. Did you find it?
1414 too.
14, 2. Yeah, there's
14,
another.
14, 2.
There's another. And then temporary markers shall be removed or replaced with a permanent marker on A.
Okay. Thank you.
And I had one more question. Forgot what it was, though. Does anybody, okay, let's see.
Got it?
No person or authorized agent of any cemetery may construct, manage, plat, or operate. How does that work with the churches? Are you talking, no person or authorized agent of any cemetery may construct, manage, or operate any new,
What section is this?
number 3, page 3, 14.07.
I think that's just saying that nobody can do any work on our property unless express written consent.
Okay. You mean, like, new ones can't be constructed, or additions?
Just blanketed, nobody can do any work on cemetery
It has-
property without,
It has to go through the cemetery committee.
Okay, but that wouldn't apply to any church or,
it'd be anybody, yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody
it
can
would
come
be
onto the cemetery property and construct something without the consent of the cemetery committee.
Does this ordinance only apply to the village cemetery or
yeah,
all
like a church
cemeteries
cemetery.
in the community?
Oh, this is just our
okay,
cemetery.
okay.
I see what you're saying now.
It's just the public cemetery.
And just that one in particular?
That's the only public
On
cemetery.
Riverside.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, I'm good.
Do we have a second public cemetery? No, we do not.
No,
We don't, but if you go back to the
there's,
purpose,
there's a burial.
if you go back to the purpose of the ordinance, is to manage the operation and planning of the Suamico Cemetery.
I mean, there's an old burial that's not official.
It's not the
But-
Suamico Cemetery.
Does everyone know about this? Is there just one that you know about?
Couple ex-husbands.
This is,
That's where she,
this is public, this is public record.
yeah, she parties on the
Hi,
weekend. and
Facebook.
on Facebook, please.
And also,
Yes.
we've got a number
Linfill?
of newer trustees, just for your edification. The village of Suamico took over the
Might need an
cemetery
officer
back in
here.
2018. So relatively speaking, it's very new for the village, and to be honest, there probably should have been a code like this established when we took it over. I'm not sure how frantic it was when the cemetery was handed over to the village, so maybe there just wasn't time. I wasn't here when that happened.
It was very frantic. It was,
So,
yes.
so there should have been some kind of code initially. We got to it now.
And, yeah, and that's,
It's
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
We've survived.
and the maker and the marker, that's just a spell check thing that.
Right, and I appreciate the detail.
Not a big deal. But, okay. I'm good.
Anybody else? Other questions? None? Okay, that's the first reading, so unless there's additional comments, we'll move on.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to item number 10. 10A this evening is Resolution 24015, thanking the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for the Forest Fire Protection Grant. Chief Bertler.
Thank you. I'll step back for a second. If you recall, in the 2025 budget approval, there was, I believe, 5 radios that were approved in the Equipment Replacement Fund. This grant acceptance will help offset some of those costs that give some money back. So we have to purchase the radios first, then the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources will reimburse us $5,500 for those radios. We're looking for more grants to offset those radio costs as well, which I stated back in budget day, but this is one that hopefully will help a little bit. So just looking for approval of Resolution 24015. Thanking the Wisconsin DNR.
Anybody have questions for Chief Bertler on this?
I would be happy to.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution of gratitude to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Forest Fire Protection Grant Program for this very nice $5,900 grant that will be used for your radios.
Thank you. Trustee Romas has offered a motion to approve Resolution 24015, a resolution of gratitude to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a second from Trustee Andrews. Any further questions or discussion on this? Let's do a roll call, please.
Trustee Neto.
Aye.
Trustee Romas.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefery.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. All right. Item number 11 this evening is Public Works and Utilities. It is the 2025 Capital Road Reconstruction Plan, and we've saved Director Smits to take us home.
Or last, thank you. Included in your packet is our 2023 PACER rating for the roads rated 1 through 4, so you guys can have an idea of where we're at going through the next few years of planning our capital improvement project. We worked off of an earlier budget discussion of around $1,060,000 to target for the roads that we wanted to include in next year's project that we will be looking to bid out here shortly. The Public Works and Utility Commission did their fall road tour about a month and a half ago already, and we rode all the roads that were scheduled or planned for 2025 and 2026, and included a few of the 7 and 8s just to make sure that we all agreed on how things were scheduled and planned for. The village board recently approved $1,059,052 as the amount of funding available for us next year for this capital improvement project. So knowing that that's our budgeted amount, we would anticipate bidding out the roads that you see in the yellow schedule for 2025. And in our contract, we have a clause that if we need to cut any of those roads due to funding restrictions, we will do that. At this time, we're probably going to have to take out 1 or 2 of those roads. We have some more extensive concrete work and curb replacement, driveway replacement this year. We have quite a bit of roads grouped together over in Hunter's Run. So a lot of curb that needs to be replaced, and that cost all adds up really quick. Quite a few manholes in there that need to be adjusted as well. So we'd have to make a decision next year if we do need to cut any of those roads, and we'll give that to you guys for a decision at that time. So other than that, I'm here to answer any questions. Again, big part of how we try to plan these out is just trying to group roads as much as we can. You know, we're still spread out and scattered with our project, but we try to put as many roads in the same spot in the same year that we can, just to get the most optimal price from contractors for mobilization. Otherwise, they charge you quite a bit to load up and move their equipment, even if it's not that far.
And all you're doing is you're asking if it's okay for you.
Yep,
to
we're
bid it
just
out.
here tonight to looking for approval that we can bid out the recommended roads in 2025 that's in the schedule.
Are there questions for Mr. Smits, Director Smits? None? If there's no questions, then we certainly can entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that we bid out the recommended roads to reconstruct based off of current surface condition using the attached 5-year road reconstruction plan. The Public Works and Utility Commission performed the annual road tour and would agree with this group of roads, recommending them for approval at the board level. And I know how much work you guys put into this. You've done a very great job of managing these roads, so I would like to make that motion.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, we've certainly come a long way. So there has been a motion offered by trustee Romas to approve the bid for the recommended roads reconstruction per the attached report and the 5-year road reconstruction plan. Is there a second to his motion?
Second.
I have a second from trustee Eckert. Any other further questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Romas.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefery.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
Trustee Neto. President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, discussion on any future agenda items. What's on your minds? Sir?
I just have a follow-up on the stoplights that is going to be on the agenda at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
That I'm asking, I'm assuming, but I'm going to just ask that, we come back with as much information for us as possible on that. Who pays for the costs
Okay,
of the lights and all that kind of stuff.
okay. I'm assuming it's the county, but we'll confirm that.
Yeah, just any information that you can provide
Yeah.
to us, it'll be helpful.
And just for the sake of efficiency, I'll probably draft a resolution that will be in the affirmative. And if it turns out the board doesn't like it, you just don't approve the resolution. And you always have the ability to tweak the words in the resolution at the meeting. But to at least give you something to work off of, I'll just draft one that.
Sure.
If it was in the negative, we just wouldn't do anything,
Right.
because as it is.
You could draft a resolution that would say that you're not in support of something.
Okay.
So I don't want to feel like I'm leading you one way or the other, but just to get the conversation started, I'll draft one in the affirmative.
Okay. Others? More? Anyone else? Anything? Okay, if there is nothing else, I would offer a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I'll second that.
I've offered the meeting to adjourn this evening's meeting, and it's been seconded by trustee Romas. All those in favor of adjourning this evening's meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
And an interim?
So, you asked Andy about the